Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear student, today we will be discussing the exchange rate in short run. Like as we have discussed that a foreign exchange market is an efficient market, and all the necessary information or all the changes in the market is already incorporated in the prices or in the exchange rate of different currencies. And we have already discussed different perspective of long run changes in exchange rate and long run determination of exchange rate. So in this week's lecture, we will be discussing that how in the short run exchange rate is determined. As in the short run, the expectation of changes in relative inflation, exports, imports, trade barriers, and productivity moves the market, and also the short run differences in interest rates and expectation of the future exchange rate play a key role in exchange rate of determination. Another aspect is the interest rate parity, interest parity condition, which equates the domestic interest rate to the foreign interest rate minus the appreciation of the domestic currency, or by rearranging the terms, it equates the foreign interest rate to the domestic interest rate plus the expected appreciation of the domestic currency. So there are many other aspects we will be discussing in this lecture. We'll start one by one, that how the exchange rate is determined in the short run, plus what are different perspectives and what are different determinants which can be there and which can play a key role in the short run determination of exchange rate in the foreign exchange market. Once we talk about short run determination of exchange rate, and it is also important that we have recognized that exchange rate is nothing more than the price of domestic bank deposit in term of foreign bank deposit. So we'll be seeing that what are the prices of our domestic bank deposit as compared to the foreign bank deposit, and this is because we will rely on the tool developed in chapter number 4. As we have done chapter number 4, and we have discussed in that chapter the determination of price, and on the basis of that, interest rate of different financial instruments in the market. So the same tool will be applied in this chapter, in which we will discuss that how the demand and supply of your currency will affect the exchange rate determination in the short run. While we are discussing exchange in the short run, it is actually associated with expected return on domestic and foreign asset. And in this circumstances, or in this example, we will be taking a person that is called as Francos. He is the foreigner, and he actually want to deposit excess euro. He has euros, and he has an option to deposit euro in locally, that is in his own country, or he can convert them into US dollars and deposit them in a US bank. So the difference is in expected returns depend on two things: the local interest rate and expected future exchange rates. So both, because as he is investing in the foreign currency, and he will be converting his euros into dollars, and then he will be investing that dollars into that bank, and after a certain time when he will be earning return on that or interest on that, he will be again converting that amount into his own local currency, that is called as euros. So in his own currency, he is only return his interest rate, but when he is depositing his currency in the foreign country, and he's converting his euros into dollars, so he'll be getting return from from the changes in the exchange rate of the foreign currency or the local currency, plus the interest rate that is actually being earned on the deposit he have invested in the foreign bank. So we will discuss this in detail in this next slides. There is another person that is called Al the American, has similar problem. He can deposit excess dollar locally, or he can convert them into euro and deposit them in a foreign bank. So the difference in expected returns depend on two things: local interest rate and expected future exchange rate changes. So the same problem is faced by this L, the American. So there are two persons. One is actually a Francos. He is actually his domestic currency is euros, and there is another person that is called as Al, and he is an American. His local currency is dollars, and he want to deposit dollar into his local currency within a local bank, in which he will be earning only interest rate. But when he invests his dollars into a foreign bank, or in a French bank, he has to convert his dollar into euros and invest that into that bank. So in that case, he will see that what his earning would be in the form of interest, and what is the return, or with the return from the exchange rate appreciation or depreciation. So he will be seeing this. Now, if you look at this example, these are dollar deposit, and these are French deposits, or in euro deposits. Expected return for Francos would be the interest rate on dollars, and the expected changes in the exchange rate of exchange rate in his exchange rate, and he will add up that, and he will be have a return. Or in the case of the expected return for L, as he will be depositing his dollars into his domestic currency, so obviously he'll be having the interest rate on the dollar deposit. Then if the Francos invest in euros, so he'll be having the interest rate on his deposit. But in case of Al American, as he is actually invested in euros, so he'll be having a return on his euro deposit, minus the any appreciation or depreciation, whatever the case is, in the domestic currency and in the domestic exchange rate. So relative expected return would be that the dollar minus the interest rate on foreign deposits, plus any appreciation or depreciation in the exchange rate. And the same is the case with that the expected return of L American would be the dollar interest rate return minus the foreign interest rate return, plus any appreciation or depreciation in the exchange rate of the currency. So these are the relative return they both will be earning while they will invest in their local currency or in the foreign currency deposits. With the help of this example, this example suggests is that as the relative expected return on dollar asset increases or decreases, both Francos and I'll respond by holding more or fewer dollar assets and fewer or more foreign assets. So this leads us to a formal title for what is going on here as interest parity. Like interest parity is a theory which suggests that if you have a if you are investing in a foreign currency, and as compared to investing in your local currency, the return would be same, because once if there is increased return in the foreign currency, so people will go investing more and more in that currency, and the stage comes that that the interest the return would be equated in both foreign currency and in domestic currency. So that is called as interest rate parity, and the at the end there would be no difference between investing in your local currency and or in a foreign currency. Like अगर हम देखें तो इसमें ये कह रहे हैं कि अगर मैं पेरिका में रहती हूँ और मेरे पास डॉलर्स मौजूद हैं, तो मैं डॉलर्स में अगर अपनी ही बैंक जो अमेरिकन बैंक है उसमें इन्वेस्ट करती हूँ तो मुझे सिर्फ एक इंटरेस्ट रेट उससे मिलेगा। लेकिन अगर जो है मैं यही पैसा जो है यूरोज में कन्वर्ट करती हूँ और किसी यूरोपियन बैंक में इन्वेस्ट कर देती हूँ, तो वहां से मुझे अगर तो एक्सचेंज रेट से फायदा हो रहा है तो मुझे दो तरह के फायदे होंगे। एक तो मुझे उससे रिटर्न मिलेगा ज्यादा, और दूसरा ये होगा कि जो फॉरेन करेंसी में जो एक्सप्रिसिएशन और डिप्रिसिएशन से मुझे फायदा हो रहा है वो जो है वो भी उसमें एडअप हो जाएगा। लेकिन इंटरेस्ट रेट पैरिटी थ्योरी ये कहती है कि अगर आप शॉर्ट रन में देखें तो ऐसा होता है कि आपका जो है वो अगर तो आपके वर्ल्ड ओवर कोई ट्रेड बैरियर्स वगैरह नहीं है या ट्रांसैक्शन कॉस्ट नहीं है, तो ये जो दोनों या अगर आप डॉलर में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं और अगर या आप यूरो में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, दोनों सेम हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि आपका अगर एक जगह पर आपको इंटरेस्ट रेट ज़्यादा मिल रहा है तो वो दूसरी जगह पे एक्सचेंज रेट की अप्रिसिएशन या डिप्रिसिएशन से कंपनसेट हो रहा है। सो इस वजह से ये इंटरेस्ट रेट पैरिटी थ्योरी है वो इस चीज़ को होल्ड करती है। Exchange rate in the short run, expected returns and interest rate parity. As we have discussed the interest rate parity condition, so dollar and French deposit or euros are actually perfect substitute. That means that if you have an interest rate on dollars, it is equal to interest rate on French deposit or euros minus exchange rate appreciation or depreciation. So if we have interest rate on dollar is 6%, and that is because US interest rate, and interest rate on foreign deposit is 3%, and what foreign currency interest rate, actually it is a foreign currency, what is the expected appreciation of the foreign currency. So the expected appreciation or appreciation of the foreign currency is 3%. So both would be that would be equal, like as you are earning 6% on US deposits, that is in dollars. So if that is the case, you will be having 3% benefit from the appreciation of your appreciation of the foreign currency, plus 3% you will be getting return from the deposit or interest through the interest rate which you are earning on your foreign deposits. So both would be equal. The interest rate on dollar and interest rate on foreign deposit minus any appreciation depreciation on the foreign currency, that would be equal. Things which should be recognized related regarding the interest rate parity condition is that expected return on the on are the same in both dollars and foreign asset. If you have certain conditions, like certain assumptions are there, like there is no transaction cost, or there is no trade barriers. So in that case, we can say that whether you want to invest in your domestic currency or for bank, or whether you want to invest in foreign assets or foreign deposits, you will be getting the same return, and there would be an equilibrium condition for the foreign exchange markets. Now, based upon all these assumptions, we will develop a supply and demand curve to explain how the exchange rate is determined in the short run. You want to determine an equilibrium condition in the market, we have to determine expected return in terms of dollar on foreign deposit, how much you are will be earning into in dollars from foreign deposit. Then we will be determining the expected return in terms of dollar on dollar deposits. So we have to determine both of these things, and based upon that we'll be determining our demand curve. And supply curve will be static, because we will be assuming that all the bank the money which is in the bank is actually the total supply of your currency, and it should not be increased or decreased. So there would be your supply curve would be a straight line, because there is no change in the supply of your currency. So we will determine the values for demand curve. Now, when you are deriving a demand curve, we assume that interest rate on foreign deposit is equal to 5%, and expected change in the exchange rate is equal to $1 is equal to €1. So at point A, our expected return is or expected exchange rate is 1.05. So 1 minus 1.05 is equal to 1.0 divided by 1.05, that will give us minus 4.8%, that is 8% decrease. Then at B it is 1, so the change is at 0%, and at C it is 0.95, so your expected change is 5.2% positive. It is increased. So demand curve connects these points and is downward sloping because your exchange rate is higher, expected appreciation of dollar is higher. So based on that, we will be determining the demand curve, and I have always already discussed with you that there isn't really anything to derive, because we will be taking the quantity of bank deposit, all the money which is on our bank deposits, your bonds and equities, as fixed with respect to exchange rate. So there is nothing to derive your supply of your currency, because the supply curve is straight line, it is fixed. So, in an equilibrium position, supply is equal to demand, and there would be an equilibrium exchange rate. And if exchange rate is greater than your equilibrium rate, demand is less than supply, and we have to buy dollar, and your exchange rate would be increased. But if your exchange rate is less than your equilibrium rate, the demand will increase, would be greater than your supply, and you will be selling your dollars, which will decrease your exchange rate. This would be maybe this would be explained with the help of next diagram. Like this is the diagram, and based upon this diagram we have derived this demand curve. This demand curve, a point where your exchange rate is 1.05, then your equilibrium exchange rate, that is at point B, and then there is your an exchange rate which is actually 0.95, and it is point C. Your supply curve is your static curve. So at this rate, your equilibrium exchange rate is 1. So in the equilibrium in the foreign exchange market occurs at point B. So this is point B, where your exchange rate is equal to 1, and the intersect. This is the point where the demand curve intersect the supply curve. That is S. S is the supply curve, and the equilibrium exchange rate is 1 euro per dollar. Now we will be explaining different changes in exchange rate. Now, in order to understand how exchange rate shifts in time, we have to understand that what are the factors that will shift expected return from domestic and foreign deposit. Based upon that, we will be examining these separately, as well as changes in the money supply and exchange rate overshooting. So first of all, if you look into this diagram, so there is a shift in the demand curve. Said demand curve should rightward when there is increase in the interest rate of dollar, because people want to hold more dollar. Obviously, जब आपको लगता है कि आपको डॉलर, अगर आप डॉलर ही में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं और वहां पर आपको रिटर्न ज़्यादा मिल रहा है, तो लोग जो हैं वो उसकी कन्वर्जन में नहीं जाएंगे, बल्कि वो क्या करेंगे, वो अपने पास ज़्यादा डॉलर करना चाहेंगे. सो इसकी वजह से क्या होगा कि आपका डोमेस्टिक करेंसी रेट जो है ना वो अप्रिशिएट होगा, और आपका डिमांड कर्व जो है ना वो शिफ्ट कर जाएगा आपका पॉइंट 1 से पॉइंट 2 की तरफ. सो वो आपका फॉरवर्ड चला जाएगा. सो जब ये व्हेन द डोमेस्टिक इंटरेस्ट रेट इंक्रीजेस, द रिलेटिव एक्सपेक्टेड रिटर्न ऑन डोमेस्टिक एसेट इंक्रीजेस, एंड द डिमांड कर्व शिफ्ट टू राइट, एंड द इक्विलिब्रियम एक्सचेंज रेट राइजेस फ्रॉम E1 टू E2. अगर आप यहाँ देखें तो ये 1 पॉइंट से 2 पॉइंट पे शिफ्ट हो गया. अब ये 1 पॉइंट से 2 पॉइंट पे शिफ्ट इसलिए हुआ है क्योंकि आपका एक्सचेंज, आपका जो रिटर्न है डॉलर डिपॉजिट पे, वो इंक्रीज हो गया. जब वो इंक्रीज हो गया है तो ऑब्वियसली हर बंदा कहेगा कि मैं जो हूँ डॉलर ही में ही रखूँ और अपने ही डॉलर में ही इन्वेस्ट करूँ, क्योंकि मुझे इस पर रिटर्न ज़्यादा मिल रहा है. तो उसकी वजह से आपकी डिमांड ज़्यादा हो जाएगी, एसेट की और करेंसी की होल्डिंग की डिमांड ज़्यादा हो जाएगी, डॉलर डिपॉजिट ज़्यादा की डिमांड होंगे. उसकी वजह से आपका जो कर्व है ये 1 से 2 पे चला जाएगा, ऊपर शिफ्ट हो जाएगा, और आपके एक्सचेंज रेट जो है वो भी E1 से E2 के ऊपर चला जाएगा. Now, what would happen when there is increase in the interest rate of foreign deposit? As because there is increase in interest rate of foreign deposit, and in that case, when you think that you will be earning more on foreign deposit, so you will be willing to sell your dollars and buy more and more of foreign currency. So this will decrease the demand of dollars, and your demand curve shift from 1 to 2 backwards, and because your demand of your currency would be decreased, so your exchange rate will be dropped from E1 to E2. अगर आप इसमें देखें तो इसमें ये समझा रहा है कि आपके पास अगर डॉलर्स हैं और आपको लगता है कि अगर आप यूरो में इन्वेस्ट करें, फॉरेन करेंसी में इन्वेस्ट करें, तो वहां पे ज़्यादा आपको इंटरेस्ट रेट मिलेगा। तो उससे ये होगा कि लोग जो हैं वो डॉलर्स बेचना शुरू कर देंगे और वो फॉरेन डिपॉजिट्स में इन्वेस्ट करना शुरू कर देंगे। उससे क्या होगा कि आपके जो डॉलर्स की जो डिमांड है वो कम हो जाएगी। जब डॉलर्स की डिमांड कम हो जाएगी तो आपका डिमांड कर्व जो है वो बैकवर्ड जाएगा, 1 से 2 पॉइंट पर आ जाएगा। और यही वजह है जिसकी वजह से आपकी एक्सचेंज रेट जो है E1 से E2 पर ड्रॉप हो जाएगा। Is another case in which increase in expected future exchange rate or foreign exchange rate increases. So as the demand curve shift to the left when there is expected increase in the foreign exchange, or you can say expected increase in the foreign rate increases because people want to hold more of the dollar. This causes domestic currency to appreciate, and in this case obviously your demand curve would be go upwards, and your it shift from point 1 to point 2. Equilibrium point would shift from 1 to 2, and your exchange rate would increase from 1 to 2, because people are expecting that your exchange rate would future exchange rate would be increased, so there would be an appreciation in the dollar amount. So that's why people want to hold more and more of a dollar. So that's why the demand of holding more dollars would increase, and your exchange rate will also appreciate. Now we can see we can explain changes in exchange rate, like as we have discussed that in the long run there are certain things which can have an impact on the exchange rate. So the following changes increase the demand for foreign goods, shifting the demand curve to the right, increasing expected exchange rate. Like expected fall in relevant US prices, like when there is expected expectation that your prices of price level will decrease in US, so obviously of demand would increase. Expected increase in relative US trade barrier, as more of that you are expecting that US will be adopting more trade barriers. Then expected lower US import demand, expected higher foreign demand for US exports, and expected higher relative US productivity. Or we have already discussed all these things in the long run rate. So in the short run, all these things have impact on the exchange rate. We can summarize these factors in the next slide. Like for example, if you see that when there is a domestic interest rate, and when there is expectation that it will increase, so the quantity demanded for the dollar would also increase, and the exchange rate also increase. Same is the case with foreign interest rate. When there is expected increase in the foreign exchange rate, so obviously people don't want to hold more dollars, and they want to hold more foreign currency because there is expected increase in the return of that, getting return from these foreign deposits. So obviously people want to hold more of foreign currency, and your exchange rate would decline. Then when there is expected domestic price level which is expected to increase, so it has also have an impact that the people want to hold less in dollar, because yeah, there would be a expected depreciation in the in the currency. So obviously this will depreciate your exchange rate. Your exchange rate will decline. Then when expected trade barriers are there, so when there is the expected trade barriers, and you think that there would be more trade barriers, so you want to hold more of a dollar, and which has an impact, positive impact on your exchange rate, and your exchange rate will increase. When there is expected import demand, so obviously there would be there is when there is increase in import demand, so obviously people will hold more of foreign currency rather than your domestic currency or your dollars, which will have an impact on your exchange rate, and your exchange rate will decrease. Then expected export demand, because there is expected export demand increases, so obviously people will want to buy more of your country's products, and they have to buy dollars, which will increase the demand of your currency, which has a positive impact on the foreign exchange rate on the dollars on your domestic currency. Then expected productivity, as we have already known that when there is increase in productivity, it has a positive impact on your currency, because your dollar would there would be more demand for your dollars, and when there is more demand for your domestic currency, it has a positive impact on your on your exchange rate, and your exchange rate will increase.